So 12 or 12 Pro? That is the question. Well, okay, if we start off with the build, this is easily the most noticeable difference actually between these two phones. 12 Pro comes in different, possibly superior colors. It's the only one that comes in gold. And it's also the only one that comes in this specific Pacific blue color. That is, in my opinion, the best available color for any iPhone right now. It's sick, but also the finishes. So another year, another glossy iPhone with a matte camera bump versus a matte iPhone with a glossy camera bump. And I still, of course, prefer the matte iPhone 12 Pro, but it's a little bit watered down instantly by the stainless steel sides, which gather more fingerprints than the CSI Employee of the Month, meaning they look pretty bad. Now, Apple's using stainless steel for a reason here. It's because it's actually more durable, it's more scratch resistant, it's just a higher quality material than aluminum, technically speaking, so that is nice. But the byproduct is definitely more fingerprints, more shininess, and actually it's a little bit heavier than the other phone. So okay, the build, maybe that's a wash. You can just pick whichever one you want from those two. Then there's the camera system. So the 12 Pro has a improved camera system over the 12, and by improved, I mean it's the same exact primary sensor, it's the same exact ultra-wide sensor, and it's an additional 2x telephoto zoom camera. Now, okay, there are going to be some people that do see that telephoto by itself as an advantage, people who take a lot of zoom photos, and it's not a space zoom, it's not a 3x or a 5 or 10x or anything crazy like that, but it's real, it's an advantage. Maybe you have kids that run far away, or you're in the back row of a concert, although in 2020, are you really? I don't know. But it is real. I'm not going to get down on optical zoom. It is fine. You will notice crispier shots at and beyond 2x zoom in good light, but I'm saying in good light for a reason, and that's because pretty much every smartphone that's ever had a second telephoto camera is using a worse, smaller, less light gathering sensor for the telephoto, and the iPhone's included in that. So when your lighting starts to get shady or a little bit dark or it's nighttime, turns out the phone smartly realizes that the main camera with the bigger sensor and this brighter f1.6 aperture is actually still capable of better zoom shots than the telephoto camera. So it just keeps using that main camera anyway as you zoom in. You can try it yourself. You can literally cover up the telephoto camera at night, and typically everything still works the exact way you'd expect it to. So the extra 2x telephoto lens on the Pro, it's there. It's better sometimes in nice light for those telephoto shots, but it's probably not a reason by itself for you to upgrade, spend more money. However, if you do really care about a better camera system, the 12 Pro Max is coming out, and it's going to have a bunch of things. It's going to have a bigger primary sensor for the first time in a while in an iPhone. That's a pretty big deal. And it also is going to have sensor shift autofocus, which is, you might have heard it called IBIS, or in-body image stabilization, instead of in-lens image stabilization in some mirrorless cameras. That should also make some pretty big improvements to low light shooting, handheld shooting, and maybe even video stabilization. So that's a lot. Oh, and by the way, the 12 Pro Max should also have a slightly longer 2.5x optical zoom on the telephoto for some reason. So this is the first year Apple's really divvying up the camera capabilities and only giving the best camera stuff to the big one. So I'm gonna be testing that and figuring out if it's all worth it. It should be on the channel here very soon, but I think it's safe to assume that that's where the real camera upgrade is going to be. So okay, build quality, pick your poison there. Extra cameras, not a huge deal. Then there's LiDAR. So there's this new little circle cutout down here at the bottom of the camera module that we first saw on the iPad Pro. Essentially, it's a depth sensor. So it has some niche uses for photography. It's actually pretty much inactive during daylight again, but at night and in poor lighting, it'll do up to 6 times faster autofocus. And I have actually noticed really impressive nighttime autofocus on this iPhone. So that's worth noting. And it'll also let you do portrait mode at night, which is sweet. And then there are some pretty massive benefits for AR. Now, augmented reality, you may or may not use that much at all. Depends on who you are. If you don't care, you don't care. If you're in the AR world, you kind of got to get this one. I'm using the Measure app as an example, but there's a pretty significant speed and accuracy improvement across everything AR related. Object permanence in space is way better. AR games are much more playable, and even in the Measure app, you can instantly measure someone's height with, an acceptable degree of accuracy. So 12 and 12 Pro, aside from that, are very, very similar. The displays, the notch, the haptics, the ceramic shield, the A14 Bionic, all this stuff is identical. Even a case for the 12 will work with the 12 Pro. But for some reason, the 12 Pro does have a slightly higher normal brightness on the display. And then 12 Pro also has 6 gigs of RAM instead of the 4 in the 12, which to me is interesting because Apple, as we know, never really talks about the RAM. So we kind of had to discover that they quietly added RAM to the phone, which to me suggests there was a reason for it. Maybe that's a little more future-proofing, a little bit better multitasking. Maybe that's what allowed it to do 4K Dolby Vision video at 60 FPS instead of at 30. And then weirdly, despite these phones being, like I said, identical in size and presumably having the same battery, the 12 Pro's battery has been consistently slightly worse than the 12. There are some theories about how this could be possibly just more RAM taking a little bit more power, or maybe it does have a different battery or something's different inside, but I think it's safe to say both these phones don't have the most amazing battery life, and if you care about battery, again, the 12 Pro Max is going to have a bigger battery. So I think the moral of the story here is if you really care about these upgrades, if you care about a screen upgrade, bigger screen, if you care about a battery upgrade, bigger battery, if you care about a camera upgrade, bigger sensors, you got to go with the 12 Pro Max, but it will be a bigger price too. Really, I think this new Apple pricing strategy of offering a phone at just kind of every price has created this dilemma, this awkward middle child situation. See, now there's a whole spectrum of iPhones available anywhere from that iPhone SE starting at $399 all the way up to $1399 for the highest end 12 Pro Max. And so Apple's strategy, and it's kind of more clear and deliberate than ever, is to give you all those offerings at all those different prices and then see if they can try to upsell you a little bit inside of that chain. So that brings me to the last, maybe most interesting point, which is storage. The iPhone 12 starts at 64 gigs of base storage, and the iPhone 12 Pro starts at 128 gigs of base storage. So, okay, I want you to go ahead and check on your phone. Maybe you're watching on it right now. Go into the settings app, check how much storage you're actually using on your phone. Maybe you're one of those people that's comfortably underneath 64 gigs. You only have 30 gigs of stuff on your phone. You'll have the phone for a few years and never hit 64. Maybe you're one of those people. But I have a feeling most of you, especially if you're watching this video, aren't that person. You're probably sitting a little closer. I went in and checked on my phone. Let me go ahead and actually see it again. But I was up around 60 gigs of used storage, currently at 52 gigs. And so if I'm going to have this phone for a couple years, I'm going to take a bunch of photos and videos, I can't get a 64 gig phone. I've got to go immediately with 128. And when you pay that 50 extra bucks, that brings this phone to $879, which is closer to this $999. And so now you're thinking, well, it's only 120 bucks to the next leap. Maybe I'll just make the leap and get the Pro. So I would say my advice is to just make sure. Are you sure about that? Do you actually have good reasons to get the Pro? Because there's going to be people who are just going to get the Pro because it's the better phone. It's got the extra thing. It's shinier. I'm going to get this one. That's cool. Maybe even the better colors are a reason you'd get it. But if you're looking specifically to get the best value, to get the most phone for your money, and you're considering getting the Pro, I don't think it's a good buy. And I think you'd be better off waiting for the 12 Pro Max and possibly actually getting more phone for that money. Waiting for the review to see if that's actually worth the 1,100 bucks it starts at, but now you know. Those are my thoughts on the 12 Pro in this world. The 12, that review is already up. Feel free to check it out. But that's been it. Thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.